If animals have any advantage over humans, it is that they can sense subtle changes in their environment before we do. And this is particularly true when it comes to seismic events such as earthquakes. In fact, there are plenty of anecdotal reports of farmyard animals fleeing their enclosures moments before an earthquake strikes, only to be found safe and sound in higher ground after the tremors have passed. But how much truth is there to these stories? And can animals really predict earthquakes? In this episode, we look at the surprising new science behind how animals can anticipate earthquakes long before they happen. When it comes to earthquakes, scientists generally agree that there's no way to predict them in advance. Although scientists can estimate the probability of earthquakes occurring in certain areas over a long time frame, accurately forecasting when and where earthquakes will take place remains elusive. This is despite significant advances in our understanding of the underlying mechanics of earthquakes and the development of sophisticated monitoring technologies. Scientists worldwide are constantly working on earthquake prediction, but so far with limited success. But while predicting earthquakes has so far proved beyond our scientific capabilities, some animals appear to have abilities we can only dream of. According to multiple news outlets, Chinese scientists recently reported that they had collected physical evidence that animals can sense the seismic waves produced by earthquakes. In their study, researchers analyzed biological samples from 3 species of animals that reportedly exhibited unusual behavior prior to a 2008 earthquake in China's Sichuan province, which measured 7.9 on the Richter scale. The earthquake claimed over 69,000 lives and injured more than 14,000. It was one of the deadliest earthquakes of the 21st century. As part of the study, the team collected hair and blood samples from 2 dogs, 12 cows, and 1 goat that reportedly exhibited strange behaviors leading up to the quake. After inducing the animals to shed hair and draw blood, the scientists examined their biological samples under a microscope to look for abnormalities in the cells. They discovered that the cells contained tiny tube-shaped structures called carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are typically created through chemical reactions involving natural gas and are used in various modern technologies. But until now, they were thought to occur only in manufactured products and not in nature. In living organisms, similar structures are formed by proteins that help maintain cell shape and aid in transporting substances within cells. However, the protein-based structures are transient and break down shortly after carrying out their functions. On the other hand, carbon nanotubes are incredibly durable and persist in the body for a long time. According to the scientists, this finding suggests that the animals were exposed to stress from the impending earthquake for a long period before the event occurred. Furthermore, the scientists found significantly higher levels of carbon nanotubes in the blood samples than in the hair samples. This implies that the animals may have sensed the approaching earthquake through seismic waves that shook their bodies, forcing them to produce more carbon nanotubes to protect themselves against the upcoming disaster. Importantly, the animals displayed signs of unusual behavior just 1 to 2 days before the earthquake, consistent with anecdotal reports of farmyard animals fleeing to safer locations before earthquakes strike. Interestingly, the authors of the study also conducted a literature review and found reports of unusual animal behavior preceding major earthquakes in Italy in 1131, China in 1512, and Japan in 1978. Based on these findings, the researchers proposed that animals can sense P waves, the initial seismic waves generated by earthquakes. These waves travel at relatively high speeds, allowing them to reach animals' sensory organs before the more destructive S and surface waves arrive. Upon sensing the approaching earthquake through vibrations, animals may produce more carbon nanotubes as a protective response. It's important to note that this study focused on retrospective data, meaning that the researchers did not observe or collect data from the animals in real time. Instead, they gathered information after the earthquake had occurred, including physical evidence and anecdotal accounts. Despite this limitation, the findings offer intriguing insights into animals' potential early warning capabilities for earthquakes. However, This is not the first study to suggest that animals possess earthquake predictive abilities. A previous study conducted in 2014 by researchers at the Kyoto University in Japan provided compelling evidence that rats can effectively forecast earthquakes. In their experiment, researchers placed 45 rats in a cage and recorded their behavior in the days leading up to an earthquake. The scientists observed that the rats exhibited unusual activity levels, specifically an increased frequency of rearing behavior, which involved standing on their hind legs and moving their front paws. Notably, the rats displayed this heightened rearing behavior one day before the earthquake, suggesting that they were reacting to seismic activities below the Earth's surface. Remarkably, the rats' foreboding behavior extended up to 5 hours before the earthquake, giving some indication of the impending disaster. According to the researchers, the rats may have been responding to low-frequency sounds produced by the movement of tectonic plates. Alternatively, the rats could have perceived minute ground vibrations or electromagnetic field changes associated with the earthquake. But why should we care whether animals can predict earthquakes? As the researchers at Kyoto University pointed out, even a few minutes of advanced notice could be enough to prompt authorities to issue a tsunami warning or trigger an automated shutdown of nuclear power plants. Even if we still couldn't pinpoint the exact timing and location of an earthquake, having some prior knowledge would be immensely beneficial in saving lives and reducing property damage. The researchers from Kyoto University continued their investigations and expanded their study to include data from a smaller earthquake that occurred in western Japan in 2016. Once again, the rats demonstrated their remarkable predictive abilities, showing significant increases in rearing and other unusual behaviors, such as side-to-side head movements and rapid eye blinking. Interestingly, they observed that the rats' behavior changed depending on the strength of the earthquake. Specifically, the rats exhibited different behavioral patterns before a magnitude 4 earthquake compared to a magnitude 7 earthquake. These findings underscore the rats' sensitivity to subtle variations in seismic activity and suggest that they could potentially provide valuable insights into earthquake prediction. These studies demonstrate that animals' inherent sensory abilities and instincts can serve as a valuable resource in our quest to better understand and predict earthquakes. By studying and comprehending the ways in which animals perceive and react to the subtle precursors of earthquakes, we can potentially develop innovative monitoring systems and early warning strategies. However, it's essential to acknowledge that while anecdotal reports and small-scale studies offer intriguing glimpses into this phenomenon, more extensive research and systematic observation are necessary to fully comprehend the mechanisms and reliability of animals' earthquake predictive abilities. Nevertheless, the existing evidence strongly suggests that animals possess unique capabilities that can complement and enhance our own efforts in earthquake prediction, potentially saving countless lives and reducing the impact of these devastating natural disasters. It's easy to dismiss these studies as mere animal quirks with no real-world application. After all, what use do we have for a rat that predicts earthquakes when we can't understand its cryptic warnings? But dismissing these findings would be a mistake. Rats are just one example of how animals can give us an early warning system that could save thousands of lives. Their acute awareness of their environment means they can detect even the slightest change in air pressure or vibrations in the ground. And if we learn to read their signals, we could be alerted to earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions long before they strike. For instance, in Japan, a country prone to earthquakes, a network of sensors that monitor the behavior of local wildlife has been developed. The system, known as Animal Quake, uses an array of sensors to record the sounds made by local wildlife. By analyzing the frequencies and patterns of these sounds, scientists can identify subtle changes in the environment that may indicate an impending earthquake. While the technology is still in its early stages of development, it holds immense potential for providing valuable insights into earthquake prediction. So next time you hear a rat squeaking or a dog barking, don't just tune it out as background noise. These animals could be trying to tell us something that could save our lives. Similarly, the bizarre behavior of fish before an earthquake could hold valuable clues about what's happening beneath the surface. Fish are cold-blooded creatures who are extremely sensitive to changes in their environment. Any shift in temperature, light, or vibrations can cause them to behave erratically, which is why they're often used as sensors in environmental monitoring. In China, a monitoring system known as the fish Quake uses specially trained fish to detect underground water movements that may signal an imminent earthquake. The system consists of sensors placed in ponds or aquariums filled with sensitive fish. When the fish detect any unusual movements or changes in the water, they swim to a designated area within the tank, triggering a sensor that sends an alert to researchers. While the technology is still experimental, it has shown promise in detecting subtle changes in groundwater levels that may indicate an impending earthquake. By understanding the signals that animals send out before an earthquake, we can potentially develop new tools and technologies that give us an early warning of these devastating events. In a world where every second counts, listening to the whispers of nature could mean the difference between life and death. So let's take the time to understand and appreciate the valuable insights that animals can provide and work toward developing the tools needed to harness their incredible abilities for the betterment of humanity. Animals have been observed to exhibit peculiar behaviors before earthquakes. Anecdotal accounts of livestock fleeing their enclosures and seeking higher ground abound, yet scientific evidence has been lacking. Until recently, the prevailing notion was that these accounts were mere folklore. However, a 2016 study published in the Journal of Earthquake Prediction and Engineering Seismology presented a compelling analysis of such occurrences across different countries and magnitudes of earthquakes. The study meticulously documented cases of animals' unusual behavior preceding earthquakes in China, Japan, and Italy. Drawing upon historical records, the researchers highlighted instances where animals displayed heightened activity levels, restlessness, or exhibited unusual vocalizations before seismic events. For instance, in the aftermath of a 1512 earthquake in China, survivors recounted how birds flew about in flocks and dogs barked incessantly in the days preceding the disaster. Similarly, Japanese chronicles mentioned ducks swimming in circles and chickens refusing to leave their coops prior to a 1978 earthquake. Such accounts, once dismissed as mere superstition, gained credibility through the systematic documentation in this study. Furthermore, the researchers presented evidence from their own experiments conducted on rats in Kyoto, Japan. Their observations revealed that rats demonstrated altered behaviors, including increased rearing and ultrasonic vocalizations before earthquakes. Remarkably, these behavioral changes occurred up to 5 hours before the earthquakes, providing a considerable lead time for potential early warning systems. The study concluded that animals' sensitivity to subtle environmental cues makes them valuable indicators of impending earthquakes. Their acute awareness enables them to perceive minute changes in factors such as seismic waves, electromagnetic fields, and gas emissions that accompany the buildup of earthquake energy. While further research is warranted, the findings presented in this study offer compelling evidence that animals can indeed provide valuable insights into earthquake prediction, potentially aiding in the development of effective monitoring systems and early warning strategies.